It is the most famous monster in the Foundation's database, the one that started an entire universe of horror. Today, we are doing a definitive deep dive into SCP-173. This is not just another telling of the basic story. We will experience the visceral terror of its containment cell, analyzing its impossible speed and the chilling biology behind the creature. We will uncover its complete real-world history as the very first SCP and the truth behind its iconic, now vanished, original image. We will venture into the deepest lore to ask if this statue is merely one soldier in a cosmic army. And finally, we will simulate the ultimate battles. Can SCP-173 destroy the unkillable SCP-682 or survive an encounter with the unstoppable SCP-096? Get ready. This is everything you've ever wanted to know about the sculpture. To truly understand the visceral terror promised in that dossier, we must step into the boots of those who face the sculpture directly, the D-Class personnel. For them, the experience begins with a silent walk to its containment chamber. You are dressed in a standard orange jumpsuit, its synthetic fabric rough against your skin, flanked by 2 guards in full tactical gear. Their faces are hidden behind dark visors, their movements efficient and impersonal. The orders given through their helmet comms were simple. You and the other 2 D-Class will enter the chamber, you will clean the enclosure, and you will follow the primary rule at all times. You remember the instructor's pale, serious face from the briefing, drilling the words into your mind. Maintain direct eye contact with the object. Coordinate your blinks, call them out. It was not a suggestion, it was the only thing that would keep you alive. The air in the corridor grows colder, carrying the sterile scent of industrial cleaner and something else. Something faintly organic and unpleasant, like an old, damp cellar. You hear the hum of the facility's life support, a constant, low drone that vibrates through the soles of your cheap boots. Then, you hear your own heartbeat, a frantic drum against your ribs. The guard to your right stops in front of a heavy, vault-like door, marked with a simple, stark label. Secure Containment Chamber, 19. He places his hand on a scanner. With a loud hiss of depressurizing air and the heavy clank of metal bolts retracting, the door begins to slide open. The room inside is brutally simple, a cube of bare concrete, stained and worn. The air that flows out is thick, heavy with the smell of waste and something acrid, like old blood. And in the exact center of the room, under the stark glare of overhead fluorescent lights, it stands. SCP-173. It's taller than you expected, nearly 7 feet high. It doesn't look like a masterpiece of sculpture. It looks like something a child would make in a nightmare. The body is a thick, bulbous torso of rough, pitted concrete, with short, stumpy limbs. Rebar, like bone, pokes through in places. And the head is a grotesque, oversized mockery of a face. 3 crude black lines, 1 green smudge, and a slash of red paint. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. It's completely, utterly still. For a moment, it's almost disappointing. This is the monster they were so afraid of? The 3 of you are ushered inside. The heavy door slides shut behind you with a deafening boom, sealing you in. The silence that follows is absolute. The cleaning equipment sits by the wall. A mop, a bucket, a squeegee. Your task is to clean the reddish-brown substance that has pooled on the floor around the statue's base. It's thick and foul-smelling. A nervous whisper from one of your companions breaks the silence, a tense vocal confirmation that his eyes were on the target. The larger man of the 2 just grunts in response, his gaze locked forward. The tense ballet of survival begins. The nervous one signals his need to blink, his voice trembling. After a confirmation from the other, he shuts his eyes for a split second. Nothing happens. The statue hasn't moved an inch. A wave of relief. so powerful it makes you dizzy, washes over the small group. Next, the larger man announces his turn. You and the other man fix your gaze, allowing him to blink safely. Again, nothing. The statue remains perfectly still. You slowly begin to clean, your back pressed against the wall, moving sideways, never letting the sculpture leave your sight. The work is tense, methodical. It seems, for a terrifying moment, that you might actually survive this. Then, the lights flicker. Just for a second. A brief, almost unnoticeable dip in power. But in that second, instinct takes over. All three of you flinch. All three of you blink. The world plunges into darkness for an instant. And in that darkness, you hear it. Not a footstep, not a rush of air, just a single, horrific, grating sound. It's the sound of stone scraping violently across stone. It's a sound that lasts only a fraction of a second. But it's loud, and it is wrong. Your eyes snap open. The lights are back to normal. But one of your companions is gone from his spot. You look to your right and see his form, crumpled at the base of the far wall, his body at an angle that defies anatomy. And the statue is no longer in the center of the room. It's on the other side of the chamber, mere inches from his body. Its absurd painted face somehow looking down at its work. It hasn't moved. It's just there. The event in Containment Chamber 19 is not an isolated incident. There is no guesswork in what happens when line of sight is broken. It is a predictable, mechanical outcome, a law of physics unique to that single entity, and it has been documented with cold precision in the Foundation's official file for SCP-173. To truly understand the threat, we must move past the terror of the encounter and look at the anomaly as the Foundation does, as a puzzle of concrete, biology, and impossible physics. Let's begin with its anatomy. The official dossier describes SCP-173 as a sculpture composed primarily of concrete and rebar, with trace amounts of Krylon brand spray paint making up its face. Foundation researchers have taken samples. They have analyzed the materials down to the atomic level, and they have found absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. The concrete is just concrete. The steel rebar is just steel. There are no exotic elements, no strange power sources, no technology hidden within. The horror of SCP-173 does not come from what it is made of, but from what it does. However, this is where the simple, mechanical nature of the object ends, and a disturbing biological element begins. Periodically, the chamber floor must be cleaned. This is because SCP-173 produces a reddish-brown substance at its base. Analysis of this substance has confirmed it is a combination of blood and feces. The biological origin of these materials is, to this day, unknown. How can an inanimate object made of concrete and steel produce organic waste? The Foundation has no answer. It is a chilling detail that suggests something more than a simple automaton, a hint of some grotesque, living process hidden within the inert materials. This leads us to the most pressing question, its movement. How fast is SCP-173? The answer is, for all practical purposes, infinite. It does not move in a way that we can measure. High-speed cameras placed in its cell have been reviewed frame by frame. In one frame, the statue is in the center of the room. In the very next frame, a mere fraction of a second later, it is across the chamber, its stubby concrete arms wrapped around the neck of a test subject. There is no blur. There is no trail of motion. It is simply in one place, and then in another. Foundation physicists have two leading theories. The first is one of extreme velocity. Assuming an average blink lasts 150 milliseconds, for SCP-173 to cross a 10-meter room, it would need to travel at over 240 kilometers per hour, or 150 miles per hour, accelerating and decelerating instantly. The second theory is far more disturbing. It suggests that SCP-173 does not travel through space at all. Instead, it engages in a form of quantum tunneling or localized spacetime manipulation, ceasing to exist at one point and instantaneously reappearing at another. It doesn't move, it simply arrives. And its arrival is always fatal. Its method of attack is brutally consistent and efficient. SCP-173 kills either by snapping the neck at the base of the skull, requiring a precise and powerful application of torsional force, or through strangulation. This specificity is unsettling. It does not simply bludgeon its victims. It targets the vital connection between the brain and the body. Why? Is this the most efficient way to neutralize a human? A cold calculation made by a mindless machine? Or is it something more? Is it a predatory instinct? A specific method passed down from some unknown origin? The Foundation's report is filled with cold, hard data, but it cannot answer the one question that truly matters. Is this thing just a deadly object? Or is it a thinking, malicious killer that enjoys its work? Faced with an anomaly that is both biologically baffling and physically impossible, how does the Foundation control it? How do they contain a monster that can cross a room in the time it takes for your heart to beat once? The answer lies not in complex technology or powerful weaponry, but in a brutally simple, unforgiving set of rules. This is item number SCP-173's Special Containment Procedures, the blueprint for survival. The containment itself begins with the chamber, a sealed room with a single entry point. But the security of the chamber is not designed to keep SCP-173 inches through sheer force. It is designed to allow for constant, uninterrupted observation. The core of the entire procedure, the single most important rule, is that a minimum of 3 personnel must be present whenever anyone enters the containment chamber. This is a rule built on the harsh reality of human biology. 1 person is a guaranteed victim. 2 people are a risk. A moment of bad luck, a synchronized blink, and both are dead. 3 people provide the necessary redundancy. It is a simple, grim mathematical equation where the variables are sightlines and the solution is survival. Inside the chamber, this rule is enforced through a strict verbal protocol. Personnel must announce their intention to blink before they do so, ensuring that the other 2 members of the team are maintaining focus. It is a constant, tense ballet of communication, a life-saving litany of "I'm blinking," "Eyes are on it," "I'm clear." Furthermore, personnel are required to enter the chamber for cleaning once every 2 weeks. This is not merely for hygiene. It is a necessary, controlled interaction to confirm the anomaly's continued presence and stability, and to reinforce the absolute necessity of the procedures for the staff. Every rule, every step, was learned through fatal trial and error. This naturally leads to a question that has been debated in forums and thought experiments for years. Could you cheat the system? Could a single person survive an encounter with SCP-173 by simply blinking one eye at a time? In theory, the logic seems sound. If one retina is always transmitting an image of the statue to your brain, line of sight is never technically broken. But in practice, this is a clever strategy that would get you killed. The psychological strain of consciously controlling your blinking while under immense terror would be overwhelming. Your eyes would dry out, burn, and eventually, your body's own reflexes would betray you, forcing a full, 2-eyed blink. The Foundation does not operate on clever tricks. It operates on protocols that minimize the potential for human error. And relying on a single person's ability to fight their own biology is the definition of human error. So what happens when these protocols fail? What happens during a containment breach? This is the ultimate nightmare scenario. one made famous in countless documented breach events and training simulations. When the facility's power fails, when the lights begin to flicker and die, the rules of the game change entirely. SCP-173 is no longer a static threat in a single room. It is now a hunter in its ideal environment. A maze of dark corridors and blind corners. Every doorway, every intersection, becomes a potential death trap. A simple power outage becomes a mass extinction event for an entire sector of the facility. Recontainment operations are among the most dangerous missions for any mobile task force, requiring teams equipped with portable floodlights and battery packs, sweeping through the dark, trying to corner the ultimate predator and once again trap it in a cage of unbreakable light. But the story of SCP-173 isn't confined to incident reports and containment logs. To truly understand its monumental impact, we have to step outside the Foundation's walls for a moment and look at its history in our world. Because before SCP-173 was an anomaly, it was an idea, and that idea became the genesis of a universe. The year was 2007. On the paranormal board of the website 4chan, known as Divided by X, a user posted a short, creepy story. It had no title. It was just a block of text, accompanied by an unsettling photograph. That post was what would become the SCP-173 we know today. It was the first, the patient zero of a global pandemic of collaborative horror. What made this post revolutionary wasn't just the monster it described. It was the format. The clinical, detached tone. The use of classifications like object class, Euclid. The cold, procedural breakdown of special containment procedures and description. This single, anonymous post became the blueprint, the foundational document for every single SCP that would follow. Its genius was its simplicity. It created a framework where anyone could add their own monster to the collection, as long as they followed the rules. The entire SCP Foundation, with its thousands of articles, intricate canons, and sprawling lore, grew from the seed of this one, perfect, terrifying idea. For over a decade, that idea was inseparable from an image, a photograph of a strange, haunting sculpture with a large head and unsettlingly long arms. The community nicknamed it Peanut for its shape. For years, this was the face of SCP-173. But the image was not created for the SCP Foundation. It was a photograph of a real-world sculpture called Untitled 2004, created by the brilliant Japanese artist Izumi Kato. The original 4chan post used his art without permission, a common practice in the early days of the Internet. For years, the SCP community existed in a gray area, with the artist tolerating the use of his work. But as the SCP universe grew into a global phenomenon, this became an issue. The core of the SCP project is its Creative Commons license, meaning anyone can adapt and share the work, even commercially. But that license could not apply to Mr. Kato's art. So, in 2022, the SCP Wiki staff made a historic decision. In order to honor the artist's copyright and to bring SCP-173 fully into the Creative Commons, the image was removed from the official article. It was the end of an era, but it was also a new beginning. The removal of the single, definitive Peanut image did not kill SCP-173. It made it stronger. It triggered a massive explosion of creativity within the community, an event known as the Great Redesign. Artists from all over the world began to imagine their own versions of the sculpture. Some were horrifyingly organic, with exposed bone and sinew mixed with concrete. Others were abstract and alien, barely recognizable as humanoid. This proved that the true horror of SCP-173 was never just one picture. It was the concept. the unshakable fear of a predator that only moves in the darkness behind your eyelids. And now, that fear is free to take any shape you can, or cannot, imagine. With the freedom to imagine SCP-173 inches any form, the community didn't just redesign its appearance. They began to explore its deepest origins. The official article is deliberately silent on where it came from, a terrifying blank page. But in the expanded universe of SCP tales, a chilling and popular theory has emerged. What if the creature in Containment Chamber 19 isn't unique? What if it's not a solitary monster, but a soldier in an army? What if it is just one small piece of a much larger, galaxy-spanning entity? This is the lore of the Unity. This theory proposes that there are countless SCP-173-like statues spread across the cosmos. They are not individual creatures, but are all connected, acting as a single hive mind, a collective consciousness called the Unity. They share senses, thoughts, and a single, unified purpose. And what is that purpose? To hunt and to cleanse. According to this lore, they were created by a vast, powerful entity known as the Koitern. The Unity travels from world to world, seeking out intelligent life that relies on sight. They perceive this reliance on vision as a weakness, an aberration to be corrected. Their method is absolute. They are a silent, unstoppable plague, turning entire civilizations into graveyards in a series of unheard snaps. This theory radically reframes the creature in the box. It is no longer just a monster. It is a scout, a vanguard for a cosmic legion of horrors. The Foundation hasn't just contained an anomaly. They have captured the first soldier of a silent, impending invasion. This brings us to the ultimate, terrifying thought experiment. What if the Foundation fails? What if SCP-173, just one single instance of this cosmic threat, escapes containment and reaches the outside world? It is a nightmare perfectly suited for our modern civilization. Imagine it loose in a crowded city square, hundreds of people, all blinking at different, random intervals. It could move through the crowd like a ghost, a phantom predator, leaving a trail of impossibly broken bodies. The cause of death, a complete mystery until it's too late. Our world of technology would offer little protection. CCTV cameras have blind spots. They have refresh rates. They can be disabled. Each digital flicker is a new opportunity to move. A citywide power outage at night would not just be an inconvenience. It would be an apocalyptic event, a feast for the creature in the dark. The psychological impact would be even more devastating than the physical one. How could society function when the simple, involuntary act of blinking is a death sentence? People would live in a state of constant, paranoid fear, fighting their own bodies, their eyes burning, terrified of the split second of darkness. It would be a psychological plague, shattering the very fabric of our lives. This is the true horror of SCP-173 and the true importance of the Foundation's mission. They do not just secure, contain, and protect us from a monster. They protect us from a reality where the simple act of seeing is no longer safe. The threat of SCP-173 feels absolute, a perfect predator. But within the Foundation's dark facilities, countless other nightmares are contained. This has inevitably led to the ultimate questions, debated endlessly in forums and breakrooms. What would happen if these titans were to clash? Welcome to the hypothetical battle scenarios. First, the most classic matchup, SCP-173 versus SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile. It is the unstoppable force meeting the truly unkillable object. This confrontation has actually happened, and it is documented in 682's termination log. When 173 was introduced into its chamber, 682 immediately showed signs of extreme fear, pressing itself against the far wall, its eyes fixed on the sculpture. For 6 straight hours, 682 did not blink. It simply stared. Only when personnel were forced to fire sniper rifles to break the stalemate did 682's eyes momentarily close. In that instant, 173 attacked, tearing off limbs and shredding over 60% of the reptile's body mass. The attack was brutally effective, but it was not enough. 682's legendary regeneration kicked in, and then it adapted. Multiple sets of hard, armored eyes grew all over its body, allowing it to track 173 from every conceivable angle at once. The test was terminated. The verdict? SCP-173 can inflict massive damage on 682, but it cannot kill it. 682's ability to adapt provides a direct and permanent counter. Next, a battle of paradoxical rules. SCP-173 versus SCP-096, the Shy Guy. The monster you must look at versus the monster you must not look at. If these two were simply placed in a room facing each other, the result would be an eternal, silent stalemate. 173 would remain frozen, as 096 would be staring directly at it. 096 would remain docile, as its face is not being observed by any human. Nothing would happen. But if a third party were to see 096's face, triggering its rage state, the outcome is clear. 096 is effectively invincible while enraged, moving at incredible speeds and tearing through any obstacle. It would not need to blink. It would simply shred the concrete statue, reducing it to dust and rebar. In this scenario, the win goes to the Shy Guy. Finally, a contest of methods. SCP-173 versus SCP-049, the Plague Doctor. This is a far more straightforward encounter. SCP-049's anomalous ability is its lethal touch, which kills and reanimates its victim to cure them of the pestilence. However, 049 has only ever shown interest in biological subjects. It would likely perceive the concrete statue as nothing more than furniture, showing no hostility. But if they were forced into combat, the victor is clear. SCP-049 is, for all its anomalous power, a physical, humanoid entity. It has eyes. It needs to blink. The moment it does, its existence would be terminated by a single, impossibly fast neck snap. 049's touch is deadly, but 173's speed is infinite. The victory here is swift and absolute for the sculpture. From a D-Class's final moments to the birth of a universe, from a real-world work of art to a cosmic horror, we have stared into the vacant eyes of SCP-173. It is the first, the original, the anomaly that set the stage for everything that followed. Its horror is not in its complexity, but in its brutal simplicity. It is a monster that needs no claws, no fangs, no grand design. It only needs you to be human. It weaponizes the single, simple, biological reflex that every one of us must perform. So, the next time you're alone, the next time you feel your eyes start to dry out, and you feel that irresistible, desperate urge to blink, remember the sculpture and be thankful that it's only a story.